you wanna learn how to do a fucking infinite?
Fuck, I came to heart, nigga. Scoop that nigga, scoop. Hagen dies. Fuck this bitch. Fuck this bitch. Fuck this bitch. It's Marvel, baby.
During the latest Nintendo Direct, Nintendo decided to partner up with Capcom and announce, well, I think it's better if you just peep.
This one's gonna take you for a ride. What the Seven arcade games featuring Marvel and Capcom characters are fighting their way onto Nintendo Switch as one collection.
Yeah, it's safe to say people are excited. But let's say you've been living under a rock for 28 years and you don't understand why that announcement was so important. Let me catch you up to speed. So, our story starts back in '96. Before even I was born, Marvel and Capcom were hot, especially after Marvel let Capcom make games like Xmen Children of the Atoms and Marvel Superheroes. Both companies were on top of the world, so they decided to ink up a deal, putting the Xmen, who were arguably at their biggest in the 90s, and Street Fighter, who was popping all throughout the 90s, together in one of the greatest crossovers of its time. And what we got as the end product was
X-Men versus Street Fighter! This is X-Men versus Street Fighter!
X-Men vs. Street Fighter is the start of what we will call the Versus series. And for our first attempt, it was a damn good try. The roster has all the characters you would expect to be here. On the Street Fighter side, we got Ryu, Ken, Chun, Bison, Akuma, Geef, and Dhalsim. The only surprise here is Charlie, but seeing as all the sprites are from Street Fighter Alpha, and Guile wasn't added until Alpha 3, Console Edition, Charlie makes a lot more sense. And on the X-Men side, we got Cyclops, Gambit, Juggernaut, Magneto, Rogue, Sabretooth, Storm, and Wolverine. We're only missing a few characters from Coda, but other than that, the X-Men side is perfect. This would also set the stage for what would be Versus Series staples going forward, like it being a tag game, or it having OTGs, or it having air combos, or in this game as they call it, aerial raves, or having super jumps, and the Magic series, better known as chain combos, which in my opinion are synonymous with the Versus series, or more character specific things, like the Shoto's fireballs being the size of the screens, or the Shinko Hadouken being a Kamehameha. Shit's fire. Games like this didn't come around too often, or at all. At the time, collabs like this were unheard of. You're telling me that I can have Ken and Rogue team up to fight Ryu and Gambit? Like, this is actually the stuff that dreams are made of. Not only is the game itself good, but the arcade mode is dope too. It is your standard little romp, but the final boss is Apocalypse, and he's one of my favorite final bosses in the series. Honestly, I wish they would have made him a real playable character in later games, but at least you got to play as him in the console version. Then, after you beat him, you get to fight the character that you were teamed up with throughout the whole entire arcade mode. Like, it's such a cool concept to me, man. They was really cooking with gas back then. Now, you would think a crossover like this was only a once-in-a-lifetime type thing, right? Oh, how wrong you are, cause this is only the beginning. 9 months later, they will follow up with,
Are you ready, true believers? Capcom and Marvel have joined forces once again to bring you it's Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter! Look, spectacular action! Don't miss out on the enjoyment of a lifetime! Behold, amazing fantasy! Don't miss the most amazing tag team fighting game ever! Are you ready for a new challenger? Now, experience Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter! Welcome to the adventure! Choose your alter ego!
yeah, now it's not just X-Men, it's the whole of Marvel, baby. Now we get characters like Captain America, Hulk, and Spider-Man. We do lose all the X-Men not named Cyclops and Wolverine though. On the Capcom side, it's still just Street Fighter characters, but we've traded Cammy and Charlie for Dan and Sakura. So if you love Shotos like me, we're so up right now. This is also the start of them implementing secret characters into the game. On the Marvel side, we have Armored Spider-Man, Mephisto, and US Agent. On the Capcom side, we have Dark Sakura, Mecha Zangief, and Shadow. Oh, hey, it's Charlie. All in all, this is kinda labeled as the black sheep of the Versus series, cause not much has changed from X-Men to this game. Like, it's all here, chains, OTGs, air combos, the whole nine. Probably the biggest thing added is the introduction of assists, which they are not the power that the series would later come to know, but hey, they're here. And that to me was like the biggest surprise because nobody talks about assists in this game. But that's par for the course when it comes to this game, cause nobody really talks about it. Like, even the arcade mode is pretty much the same, except the final boss is an apocalypse this time. It's Cyber Akuma. And yeah, on the surface, it is just Akuma with a robot arm and a robot wing. And while it is sick that when Akuma was added to SF5, they modded in that skin for him. And then Capcom would officially release a Cyber Akuma skin for him too, which is all dope cause look at him. He's sick as fuck.
In the spot, I came with the fellas. Ray Mac got hit in the back, it's melon. And if I throw a bullet, I bet he catch like Beckham.
But at the end of the day, it is just the Akuma sprite with robo attachments. And some people will say it's lazy, like the rest of this game, which hey, I'm not disagreeing with, but Cyber Akuma is pretty sick. And I think there's a lot of sick stuff in this game to like. Now, if I was able to go to arcades back then, you know, if I existed, I would probably be thinking, man, how does it get better than this? But man, Capcom outdid themselves. Cause 6 months later, damn, y'all was just pumping out games back then, huh?
Capcom presents Marvel vs. Capcom. Come on. Marvel vs. Capcom. Let's go crazy! Class, select your hero.
Yes, sir. This is where I started at. I still didn't exist yet. We still have access to Marvel as a whole, with some newcomers being Venom and War Machine. We still only have 2 mutants, with Cyclops being replaced by Gambit and Wolverine still being here. And speaking of Logan, he's been around from the start. I sure hope nothing comes in and messes up his perfect attendance record. But now, we get access to all of Capcom, and boy do we got some characters here. Now, we only have 3 Street Fighter characters, Chun-Li, Zangief, and Ryu, which we'll get to you later. But other than them 3 returning characters, Capcom is all new this time around. We got Morgan from Darkstalkers, we got Mega Man from Mega Man, we got Jin from Cyberbots, we got Captain Commando, and
my boy, Mr. Drip, rawness, and swag.
This game would also continue the tradition of adding secret characters to the roster. On the Capcom side, we have Shadow Lady, who's just Chun-Li, and Lilith, who's a recolor of Morgan, who doesn't really look like Lilith this time around. And on the Marvel side, we will have Gold War Machine, Hyper Venom, or Red Venom as most people call him, and Orange Hulk. This would also be the game where assists would be very important / relevant to the gameplay. I skimmed over during the last game, but assists are a core feature to the MVC series. Instead of having your teammate come in to assist you, you now have the ability to call upon a third character to help you during a fight. You have characters including Storm, Rogue, Cyclops, and pretty much all the old mutants on the Marvel side. There are some new faces like Thor and Jubilee, but the rest are returning from old games. And on the Capcom side, you got these guys. But there's 2 that I want to talk about. One being Arthur, who alongside with Thor will later become characters later on in the series, and Saki, who will later become a full-fledged character, but not in the Versus games though. But in another Capcom crossover fighting game, that being Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. We'll talk about that another time. Yeah, but all the assists do is attack, strike a pose, and then peace out. Some are obviously stronger than others, but you have to find that out for yourself. This would also be the first Versus game to introduce cross assault. In previous entries, we just had dual team attacks, which is where both characters will come in and do their supers. Now with cross assault, we have both characters coming in at the same time, and you get to control both of them. You also have infinite super meter, which allows you to do crazy stuff like this. Man, this game is so sick. Also, remember how I said we were gonna get back to him? Yeah, so this game kinda has the coolest version of Ryu ever created. At first glance, he kinda just does regular Ryu stuff, but everything changes when you do half circle back with one of the punch buttons.
Air combo.
Ryu can switch between Ken and Akuma's movesets, which now makes him the ultimate Shoto. He's like the coolest character in the game! Capcom, you need to do this again! The fact that all of these games came out within years of each other is crazy. But Marvel and Capcom would take the year 99 off, so that yours truly can be born, and will come back in the year 2000 with a bang. Not only did they drop Project Justice, Rival Schools 2, Power Stone 2, and Capcom vs SNK, which is another series I need to talk about some other time. With these games alone, the lineup is already looking crazy for the year. But then they also dropped one of the greatest fighting games, no, one of the greatest video games ever made.
Capcom presents
Ready?
Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes.
Select your heroes.
When we talk about crossovers, it doesn't get better than this. No, you'll get your video later. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a landmark in gaming. Not only did it serve as many people's entryway into fighting games, it also served as their entryway into competitive fighting games, and the FGC as a whole. There's so much stuff to talk about in this game alone that it can have its own video. But let's keep it brief. MVC 2 is either the fourth or the second game in the Versus series, depending on how you look at it. And when I say this game is insane, it is no exaggeration. This really the game y'all was hyping up? This shit looked like ass! With over 50 characters, more than doubling the roster spot of the previous game, it was the largest fighting game roster at that time. And to make use of this large roster, instead of controlling 2 characters and an assist, you got to use 3 characters. And that was groundbreaking at the time. Cause while KOF existed and you got to play with 3 characters there too, it was still a 1v1 game, so Capcom actually ended up creating the 3v3 tag format. I said earlier that they got rid of the assist character, but they didn't get rid of assists. Now instead of 1 assist, you have 2 assists to call upon. And not only that, every character has 3 different assists for you to choose from, leading to endless possibilities. So in theory, you can use whatever characters you want, cause with 3 assists to choose from, every character should work with every character. This is also where we would get DHC or delayed hyper combo and getting special to super cancels for the first time in the series, which truly brings everything together in the game. And there's so much more I could dive into, like the fact that most of the characters in the game are unlockables, keeping with the secret character tradition, or the fact that you could play 3v3 with 3 of the same character, effectively playing a 3v3 with only 1 character. And don't even get me started on the crazy competitive history of this game.
Oh, he's so Pringles. Where your curly mustache at?
Listen, to truly explain to you how great Marvel 2 is as a video game, I'll be here longer than I'm allowed to make this video for. So, let's move on. So, with the timeline we set up so far, you probably think the next game gonna be out in like 2, maybe 3 years, right? Try 11, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So during the early 2000s, fighting games kinda went through a dark era. But there's a lot to go over, so instead, I'll just give you the important bits and how it relates to Marvel vs. Capcom. With arcades effectively becoming obsolete in the US due to the rise of console gaming, and with Capcom sales being down, I mean like way down, especially after the release of Third Strike, they didn't see fighting games as a profitable market anymore. So after the release of Capcom Fighting Evolution, Capcom decided not to make a new fighting game until 2009, which was the release of Street Fighter 4. Now with Capcom's business practices covered, we can finally talk about the ports of MVC 2 2 and MVC 1, with the latter being released in Marvel Origins for the Xbox 360 and PS3. Now, these releases are important for a number of reasons. Like, this is the first time that these games are playable since the PS2 and PS1 respectively, and it helped people like me who played these games on said consoles when they were younger, but had no way of playing them now. It also helped get new people into the series. People like me, cause the Xbox 360 version was the first way I got to experience this game. But the biggest reason, and this one mainly goes for the MVC 2 re-release, was to drum up hype and interest for their next game, which was
Capcom presents Marvel Comics.
vs. Capcom 3. Fate of Two Worlds. Normal. Marvel vs. Capcom 3. That's right, the third chapter. The superheroes are all here. Who will rise to the top?
Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is a game that some would widely consider one of, if not the best fighting games of all time. And I get it. With this roster, while not as big as MVC2 and missing some notable inclusions, like a lot of the Xmen, in particular Cyclops, especially since he's been in every game and he was the guy that was dabbing a Ryu in X-Men vs Street Fighter, it still has some great picks on the Marvel side. Some of the newcomers include Deadpool, She-Hulk, Taskmaster, and X-23. And on the Capcom side, it's nothing but bangers. We got Amaterasu, Wesker, Beautiful Joe, Zero, and
my boy, Mr. Drip, Rawness, and Slag.
This would also be the game where they changed up controls again. In MVC2, you had a light punch, a heavy punch, a light kick, and a heavy kick. And you had your 2 assists, which overall made it a 6-button fighter, but going into Marvel 3, they switched it up. Now you only have a light, medium, and a heavy button. You also have a special button, which is used for launchers and sometimes special moves, and you'll still have the 2 assists. So, it's still technically a 6-button fighter. It's crazy how these versus games can't decide on a unified control scheme, cause even going back to MVC1, that was a 6-button fighter. You had light, medium, and heavy punches, and light, medium, and heavy kicks. But the light, medium, heavy special control scheme makes more sense when you realize that the developers of MVC3, aiding, are also the same guys who worked on TVC, which came out a couple months before this game. But the biggest change that was made coming into this game was the introduction of X Factor, which is...
Here we go. Oh my god! What the hell?
Too hot for you?
Shit! Oh, reverse Dark Phoenix OCV.
Ask not for pity.
Look at the chat, bro. He killed me with one combo. Every character. I had 3 characters. He look at the chat. Look at the chat. They're blowing up. What the?
Divisive, to say the least. It was a product of when fighting games was giving all their games comeback mechanics, and unfortunately they made it a little bit too strong. Cause on one hand, it made characters that were just okay really good as anchor characters, but at the same time, it made characters who were already good even better. So while the game had its faults, it was loved and celebrated cause MVC was back, and the future was looking bright. Maybe it was a little too bright though, cause only 8 months after the original release of MVC3, we would get
Capcom presents Marvel Comics.
Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Now, while this game did fix a lot of the problems with the OG MVC3 and added the DLC characters from that game, those being Jill and Shumagorath, and added a bunch of characters like Nova, Iron Fist, Doctor Strange, Phoenix Wright, and my boy Strider. Oh yeah, and and it can't be understated how the public perception of this game really soured the brand at this time. Cause while DLC was a thing at the time, a lot of companies weren't on board with the idea yet, especially Japanese companies. So instead of selling us all the characters as DLC, or selling us a paid update like they would later do with Street Fighter Arcade Edition, they decided to make a whole new game with the patches and the new characters like we was back in the 90s. And the people were not happy. Now, Capcom was selling the game at a lower price, but people who bought the OG MVC3 felt like they was getting robbed. Cause 8 months ago, they just dropped like $50-$60 on a new game, and now they're being asked to buy an update for $40. And you couldn't blame people at the time if they decided, you know what, I'm not gonna buy this update, cause they're just gonna update it again, and I'll buy that one. And it showed, cause the game only did 600K in its first 2 months. So even with the public loss, it wasn't all bad though. With the FGC still rallying behind the game, and with dev support, ooh, yeah, nah, it might actually be cooked this time. Yeah, so Capcom would no longer be supporting the game. And not only that, MVC3, MVC2, and Marvel Origins will all be delisted off the Xbox and PlayStation stores. At this point, it seems like it was more over than it ever was before. But the FGC was holding this game down, but that's a story not for this video. With each year that went by, it looked bleaker and bleaker. The hope for a new Marvel vs. Capcom game was looking grim. But with more and more fighting games starting to come out like MKX, Tekken 7, and Street Fighter 5, and the MCU blowing up like the way that it did, it was only a matter of time before Capcom and Marvel would link up again. And in 2017, after 6 years, Marvel vs. Capcom was back. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is the latest game in the Marvel vs. Capcom series, and it's the best in the series. It got praise from every media outlet, all the vets of the series loved it, every pro player played it as their main game, everybody loved MVCI. Wait, hold on folks. What? You said MVCI wasn't praised by the media? And you said pro players and casuals hated?
That's Jackass always a weasel.
The most embarrassing thing you've ever seen?
That's Jackassism.
And now it's worse because I'm repeating everything you say into the microphone?
Alright, I'm gonna keep it a sec with y'all. I like MVCI, but I'm in the minority when it comes to that opinion. And I can't blame people for feeling that way either. Cause when you look at the way Capcom marketed this game, they kinda did it to themselves. So, let's go over the 3 core issues of MVCI and why the game failed the way it did. So remember the problem back in MVC3 where basically most of the X-Men were cut barring 5 of them? Yeah, so MVCI got rid of all of them. But it's okay, cause we got characters like Captain Marvel and Black Widow, Ultron, Winter Soldier, anybody? Yeah, you get the point. Most of the roster on the Marvel side was made up of MCU characters. There were a few exceptions, but the exclusion of X-Men characters really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And it didn't help when they were asked about the X-Men, and they said that, and I quote, they're just functions. So if you've been paying attention to this video, you'll know that the X-Men are the reason why this crossover even started in the first place. So their exclusion in MVCI made it feel like for a lot of people, this wasn't Marvel. So the Marvel side wasn't doing too hot. But what about the Capcom side? Yep, my goats are here. Ryu and Chun, check. Zeo Morgan, check. Hagar, Spencer, Arthur, Frank West? Wait a minute, this is just the Marvel 3 roster again. Which isn't a bad thing, cause a lot of these characters are beloved because of that game. And it's not like we didn't get any new characters either. We got the return of Mega Man to the Versus series after being absent from 3. We also got Sigma, so that's all of Mega Man X represented. We also got Jetty here, which makes him the first male Darkstalkers character in a 3D fighting game. And then we got...
Don't worry, I'll just trap you. I'll tear you apart!
Absolute power! Shut up! Worship and none!
Going full power! Finish! Big mistake! This is your end! Quest complete. Now let's return to camp.
That it? Peak Gaming? Peak Gaming, bro!
Yeah, so to nobody's surprise, the Capcom side got bangers. I kind of forgot to add something, so this is more like a issue 1.5. A lot of people weren't happy with the gameplay, and not necessarily the gameplay itself, because when you play the game is actually really fun. Like, it's one of the better Capcom developed fighting games. A lot of people didn't like the fact that it was a 2v2 fighting game. Like, a lot of people were used to the MVC2 and MVC3 style of it being a 3v3 fighting game. And it also didn't have assists either. Like, you kind of got these stones, or you got the Infinity Stones, and those were like to be your assist slash your third character. And a lot of people really wasn't messing with it like that. Me personally, I think they're fine. It's whatever. But yeah, so that's technically another reason. But like, a lot of people have come around to, you know, MVCI is actually a really fun game. So it was kind of an issue in the beginning, and then as time went on, a lot of people kind of, you know, they were like, oh, you know what, yeah, we was kind of wrong with that. Yeah, no, this game looks like... Yeah, there's videos on ways to make the game look a little bit better, but there's no saving the base graphics of the game. And during the lead up to release, it looked even worse. Chun-Li was the main character being used to illustrate why this game looked awful. And when you look at it...
Understand, everything depends on you two. On the Soul Stone and the device. If you fail...
It's an awesome responsibility.
Hey, we're awesome guys.
Yeah. Nice.
My God, we're doomed.
Peak Gaming?
Yeah, you can see it. My boy Dante doesn't look the hottest here either. And there's a bunch of other characters to rag on too. Like Cap and Tony look ugh. And don't even get me started on Spencer. And Ghost Rider's penance there is just...
Look into my eyes. Have a nice death.
Finish you. I am vengeance incarnate. The engine of hell. Feel my fury.
It's not all terrible though, cause they got some good looking stuff in here. Like Gamora and Captain Marvel are easily the best looking characters in the game. And personally to me, Venom looks so damn cool in this game. And now every character in the game gets a level 3, which wasn't the case in MVC3, and some of them look really good.
Let's go. Stay down. Hit it. Unyielding. Justice. I won't surrender.
It's spy time. Take the stage. My spidey senses are on fire. What the freak goblin? I want to take that hit, Norman. He's gone.
I will show you true despair. Now beat your end. This is how the world should be.
teeth. Let's go, Steve.
Watch your back. Over here.
Take this.
Unyielding justice.
You've done enough.
I mean, yo, fire! Goats! What do you say, bro? Like, yo, this is peak. This is peak. There's nothing that can be done here that can be improved on. This is peak.
Earlier, I did say that there was no way to fix the look of the base game, but I lied. Y'all know I gotta keep it 99. There's a mod being worked on by the GOAT, Maximilian dude, called Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Beyond. And this thing looks amazing. Personally, I can't wait to get my hands on it. The only problem is, if you don't have a PC, you're kinda out of luck. To be honest, I feel like a lot of these things could have got looked past, especially by the competitive folks if this was the only versus game out on the market. And normally it would have been, because Capcom is really the only people that make versus games. But there's a pretty big elephant in the room that I'm not talking about. And if you were around during that time, you know what it is. But for those who wasn't, nah, but could you imagine though? Dragon Ball FighterZ was probably one of the most popular games for a couple years when it released. With amazing graphics by Arc System Works, the creators of the Guilty Gear series, and with amazing music and gameplay with it being a 3v3 tag assist based fighter, meant that it was exactly what people were looking for to fill that Marvel-sized hole in their heart. It also didn't help that during the week of MVCI's launch, Dragon Ball had a beta, so everybody had a chance to play it. Also, the launch of Dragon Ball was 4 months later, so MVCI was kinda dead on arrival. The timing of Infinite couldn't have been worse. So what? Was that it? MVC fans were left with a game that most people hated, and those who had an itch to play a Marvel 3 style versus game played Dragon Ball? Well, yeah. That's how the story almost ended. But as I hope you've all learned from this video, Marvel may stumble, it may even fall, but Marvel will never die. During 2020, when we were all locked inside bored, a bunch of people got the idea to start playing Marvel 3 again. But the thing is, Marvel 3's online isn't the best. So, how did they do it? With a little app called Parsec. Hold on, Pass RaVe. You got a little too much dip on your chip, partner. You're probably wondering how people got to play Marvel 3 again if it got delisted in 2013 and never released on the PC. Well, back in 2017, Marvel and Capcom linked up again for Infinite, and since Marvel had the rights to Capcom again, they decided to re-release MVC 3 on modern consoles and PC. The Parsec era was instrumental in reviving Marvel 3, cause now people had a viable way to play Marvel again with good netcode. Well, it's better than the in-game netcode. It's no rollback, but it's better than nothing. Everybody was able to run online weeklies and monthlies. It was great. Everybody was enjoying Marvel again. Then, during 2021, the GOAT Max would step in and launch the #FreeMVC2 campaign, and this thing would blow up and get in the eyes of everybody on Twitter. It was like #1 trending in the world, and it even left Twitter, even having celebrities like Michael B. Jordan wanted to see MVC2 re-released. And then, even when it seemed like the MVC2 campaign had died, the people didn't lose hope. They went back to Marvel 3 and they started modding it, adding playable characters. The community basically said, if Capcom isn't going to give us a new game, we'll make one on our own. And thus, Marvel 3 Palette Swaps was born. And for those who don't know about Palette Swaps, seriously, go look it up. It's one of the coolest things in the Marvel community right now. One of the biggest highlights for me is that they finally put Asura in a versus game, and the hype train didn't stop there. They even put Marvel 3 at the main stage of EVO in 2023. It was the biggest fighting game tournament for the game, and the first one in 6 years. The love and the passion that this community has for its series is commendable. The only ones that could rival it is like Smash Brothers, cause even when the developers turned their backs on them and everybody said it wasn't possible, the community just put their heads down and kept grinding and showing people why Marvel is the best. And it's that dedication, that love for the game, that makes this moment all the more amazing.
This one's gonna take you for a ride. 7 arcade games featuring Marvel and Capcom characters are fighting their way onto Nintendo Switch as one collection. Clash in Xmen vs. Street Fighter. Duke it out in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes. take down the Kingpin in the beat-em-up side-scroller The Punisher, and more. Hit up training mode to polish your fighting skills and combos. Select online mode to challenge rivals around the world. Or play co-op in The Punisher. You can also cross over to the museum to view artwork or listen to music from each game.
I wanna take you for a ride.
Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics launches on Nintendo Switch this year.
Fucking how?
Marvel vs. Capcom is amazing. There will never be another series quite like it. Just the thought of a company like the American-based comic studio Marvel, responsible for characters like Wolverine, Captain America, and Spider-Man, crossing over with the Japanese-based video game developer Capcom, responsible for characters like Ryu, Strider, and Dante, to make one of the greatest video game crossovers of all time, just sounds insane. And if there was 14,605 different universes where Marvel vs. Capcom didn't happen, I'm glad I ended up in this one.
Open them doors and I'm touching it. Day one's when we step through that shit and we shut in it, yeah. If it ain't work the first time, then it's back to the basics. I cannot settle for less, I ain't being complacent. Turkey and free, we running this shit, it's like aces. I'm gonna come up again, all of that took was some patience. If it ain't work the first time, then it's back to the pavement. I'll talk to you niggas, I'm working, I get to you later. They talking out of my label. It's Marvel, baby.